This week's episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob is not brought to you by Raisinets, mainly because I still don't know what they are. I read about them in a book once, but they're not sponsoring us.
Welcome to I Was a Teenage Film Snob. I'm your host Tina Chalmers, your friendly neighbourhood part-time film snob, because I don't have enough time to watch movies because I'm a mum. And this week we're continuing our journey into the 80s, back to the 80s, and my guest this week is someone very special and very dear to my heart. It's my husband. You might know him, James Chalmers. Welcome to the show, James.
Hello. It's so weird being on the other end of this.
It is, isn't it? It's weird being the host.
Yeah, I just do it all the time.
Do you like my hosting voice? I should have put on a hosting voice, much like the soothing tones of Rob Brydon.
I was thinking of thoughts for your thoughts.
Thoughts for your thoughts.
It is
I should have done that. Can we start again?
It is really strange. So when I first created the show, I was like, after the first couple of episodes, I was like, damn it, you idiot, James. You've created the perfect show for you, and you can't be a guest on it because you're hosting it. So it is weird, but no, I'm very excited to actually be guesting on the show.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. All right. Well, then, what does it mean to be on this episode for you?
What does it mean? I know. Well, I guess I get to talk about movies that I like for once. I mean, I did an episode with Nick, and we talked about our top 5 favorite films of all time. But I was still driving that, whereas this time I'm the recipient. I'm on the end. I'm getting interrogated a little bit.
Yeah. Are you nervous? Are you concerned? You think I'm going to tear you to shreds like how you tear me and everybody else?
No, not at all. I was talking to someone today about it. I said I'm getting interviewed on my own show tonight, and I was like, it's good because I'll be able to kind of steal back some cred, because there have been a couple of episodes recently where I haven't seen some of the movies, a few too many of the movies listed, and I'm like, oh man, like I'm going to lose my film snob cred. So tonight I get to take control of that again and talk about my list of films. So that's very important to me.
That's the thing that I'm concerned about. I'm concerned you're going to list a whole bunch of films that I'm like, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that either. I don't know what that film's about.
I'll be honest, on my top 5 list, I think you've seen one of them.
Oh, really? Okay.
But that's okay, because I'll talk through them.
Yeah.
But no, because obviously I love talking about movies. Otherwise I wouldn't do this show as I do. But it's very much a learning experience for me. I get to hear what everyone else talk about their favourite films and that sort of thing. And we've never really gone into my story about why I like movies, and we won't really touch on that tonight, I don't think. We're talking more about the 80s. But that's still a very integral part of who I am as a film fan. I guess I get to wax poetic a little bit about the things that I like. Which I don't know whether the listeners are going to be in for, like whether they're like, yeah, finally we get to hear him, or they're like, oh my god, he never shuts up and he's going to talk even more. So I don't know whether this is a treat or a punishment for the listeners.
Yeah.
But hopefully they've been looking forward to hearing me talk about some of the stuff that I like and why. But yeah, so very exciting.
Well, I've got another question for you. It's a little bit left of centre, because this is the thing, because the 80s for us, we were born in 88, so we don't remember any of the 80s.
That's correct.
Like, basically. Like, we only remember the 90s onwards. But what would you say would be, like, the epitome of the 80s for you? Not just, like, forget about film for a second. What does the 80s mean to you? Because I know what it means to me.
I've talked about it a lot on this show, and I think, like, more than anything, something that's so definitively 80s and I resonate with, I think resonates with a lot of people, is music.
Okay, that's not what I was going to say, but okay. And then, explain that.
Like, I think, if I want to tie it into movies, and I have said this a couple of times before, the 80s is the first time really where movies had soundtracks where they used popular songs.
Yeah.
Before the 80s it was all score. You might have got a popular song every now and then randomly, or a not so popular kind of public domain access song.
Yeah.
With the exception of things like, obviously Elvis movies and stuff like that. But for the most part, you didn't get that. At the 80s, they were like, you know what? Instead of just come up with music, let's just whack a song in there.
Yeah.
But even beyond that, like, 80s pop, and I'm not the biggest pop music fan, but I'm not crazy. I understand, like, how popular that 80s music is, and still to this day.
Do you like 80s music?
I like some 80s music. Like, obviously 80s is
a lot of it's pretty rough.
It is, but the 80s is also the birth of modern metal. So you get things like Metallica and Iron Maiden and Megadeth, and things like that. You get a lot of punk from the 80s, like like NoFX.
Sex Pistols.
I think NoFX was the tail end of the 80s into the 90s. So you get a lot of that sort of thing as well. And there is some 80s pop. Like, I'm not a big, like, Madonna or Cyndi Lauper fan. I don't mind a little bit of Prince, but, like, I'm not a huge Prince fan. But then, like, Huey Lewis and the News, who I'm sure will come up later in this conversation, was big in the 80s.
ELO?
ELO, of course. And...
The Jam. I love the Jam.
I'm trying to think. I'm literally, like, it was on the tip of my tongue. And now that I'm on the other end of it, I can't think anymore. Like B-52s. Like, I'm not a massive B-52.
80s? I thought that was 90s.
Nah, B-52s I'm pretty sure it's 80s.
Really?
Oh, well, I mean, look, I'm a movie guy, not a music guy, so, if I'm wrong... I feel like Love Shack is more of an 80s tune.
I don't think so. I think that's 90s.
Let's do what we always do in the show, and we'll look it up, just like Smarty from Sesame Street. Let's see, Love Shack release year. I type really fast. 89, it counts.
Oh, okay, alright, that counts.
There's one movie I was going to talk about in my honourable mentions tonight. I was like, I'm just going to double check, because when Josh was on, the first 3 movies he listed as honourable mentions for the 80s were actually from the 70s. And so I was like, I've got to make sure I don't make the same mistake. And I was going to talk about Back to the Future Part 3 tonight as an honourable mention. And I was like, I think that's 1990. And I was right, it was 1990. So it does not get discussed.
Yeah.
Also, I know I'm kind of jumping in here. I will not be talking about Back to the Future Part 1 at all tonight.
Yeah.
Even though it would be probably my favourite 80s film of all time. I've already kind of talked about it a lot.
Yeah. It's like, how many times can we talk about it?
Well, my other thing as well, I don't hold my guests to the same standard, but I'm like, look, every conversation I talk about my favourite movies, I want to bring something different to the table. Yeah. Otherwise, Back to the Future is going to show up, every list, Back to the Future will be on, every list, Clerks will be on, every list, Hot Fuzz will be on, Kill Bill, like, they'll keep coming up.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I want to do instead is kind of bring more variety.
Yeah, that's right, variety.
So that's what the 80s means to me, but you had something a little bit different, you were saying.
I was thinking, so 2 things come to mind. Consumerism.
Of course. Really
big explosion of consumerism, and toys. Which leads into consumerism. But the toys in the 80s were huge, massive. Like, you actually had, like, television shows being made about toys just to sell the product and all that sort of stuff like that. And that really leached into the 90s, where we had really good quality toys growing up. But then obviously, like, the 90s then pushed further into, like, environmental issues, and people were not so keen on the amount of plastic and all that. With fair enough, absolutely fair enough. But yeah, the 80s just seems all about excess, spending lots of money that might not necessarily have been your money. Yeah. Wolf of Wall Street really comes to mind, that sort of thing. So that's just kind of what I think of. And I think that whole idea of consumerism and excess is really present in the films and in the music as well. Yeah. It was really present in the films.
I did think about excess, and I did think about toys as well. Obviously shows like He-Man and the Master of the Universe was one of the big toy shows. Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, those sorts of things. The other thing I was going to say is, 'cause I talked about music and kind of the birth of the kind of soundtrack. You also get the birth of the modern slasher film in the 80s. Like, obviously the slasher film was created, some would argue Peeping Tom or Psycho in the 60s kind of were the first slashers, and then you get, you kind of get Texas Chainsaw, Black Christmas in the 70s. But the 80s is the modern slasher, and also, like, the franchise movie.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, there were a couple beforehand, like Jaws franchised early on, and actually Psycho ended up franchising as well. And like Dirty Harry, there were a couple of franchises, but the 80s is the modern franchises, like Freddy's and Jason's and, Michael Myers movies. Yeah. Even though Halloween was also a 70s film, most of its sequels were in the 80s. Yeah. So you do get that as well. And you also get kind of the birth of the teen film in the 80s.
Yeah, absolutely you do.
Again, you might have had a couple of minor attempts in the 70s, but the 80s is really the birth of the modern teen film. And like I've mentioned slashers and horror and teen films, and they're all on my list. So, some of my favourite ones are from that era. So yeah.
Cool. All right, well, what do you reckon? Should we jump straight into it?
We can jump into the list. Do you want me to do my 5 first, or do you want me to do my honourable mentions first? You're the boss. You tell me.
I reckon we're going to save honourable mentions to last because it's like a little dessert.
Yep.
Little. What's the aperitif?
An aperitif?
Yes, an aperitif.
I was going to say an amuse-bouche, but that's more
amuse-bouche is at the start, I think, isn't it? All right, so let's start it off with number 5.
So
what is your number 5?
So my movies aren't in any order.
Okay, yeah.
Because
that's right. That's where we differ. I always tend to put it in a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, it was tough because again, like I could have easily just been like Back to the Future.
Yeah.
And the more I thought about it, the more complicated the list got. I've noticed that a lot in the show. It's like top 5 is really cruel to people to try and narrow it down. And now that I'm on the receiving end, I'm like, oh, it really is quite tough. So what I've done is I've kind of compiled a bunch of movies that not only... Like, most of them I actually didn't watch as a child. Most of them I actually watched in my adult life.
Yeah.
And the reason why they're there is that they're so good that it doesn't matter that they're 40 years old. They still work today.
Yeah, but that's also not what the list is. The list isn't 5 movies from your childhood.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it can be something that you watched 2 weeks ago and it still be, in your opinion, the best 80s one of the best 80s movies.
It's why Midsummer made my top 5. You know, I was like, oh my goodness, like a movie so recent made it. Okay, so number 5, is a horror film. It's a film I would have...
Oh, shocker.
Yeah, I know. A film that I watched in my late 20s. And I'd put off for a long time because I think my dad had seen it. And he's like, yeah, I'll never watch that one again. And as a kid, I was like, oh, if my dad was scared by it, then it's probably pretty rough.
Yeah. That's like how Mum always said, don't ever watch the Amityville Horror, Tina. I was like, okay.
It's you could totally watch it. It's really like it's fine, yeah. And one thing that's really impressive about this film is that is the effects.
Okay.
Like the beautiful thing about the 80s is it's pre-CGI. I mean, I guess towards the end of the age you get a bit of that early CGI.
Yeah.
But for the most part they're still using rubber and plasticine and different practical effects. They're using pumps to like squirt blood out and ooze and all sorts of things.
Right.
This is one of the few films I ever watched that actually made me feel sick while watching.
Oh, really?
I've never like had my stomach churn in a movie like this before. And it's, of course, David Cronenberg's The Fly, starring Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, for those who don't know the story of The Fly, basically Jeff Goldblum plays this guy, I can't remember his first name now, but it's something Brundle. And he's this scientist and he's working on trying to create this technology where he can teleport things. So the Simpsons parody.
That's the only reason I know of it is because of the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror parody.
Yeah. So it's about him, and he's trying to create these teleporters, and then what happens is when he's running an experiment, he makes himself the test subject, because otherwise it's one of those things where, like, if they don't get results soon, funding will be shut down and all that sort of thing.
Right, yeah.
And he's very ambitious, you know, we talk about excess.
So he's under the pump.
Under the pump, and being the 80s, it's all about excess and ambition and trying to succeed.
That's right.
And so he probably moves a little bit quickly, and when he goes to activate the teleporter, so I think he puts like a monkey through first, or a dog, I think it's a monkey or something through first, and it works. And then he goes in to do the first human trial, and a fly goes in, and at first he doesn't notice anything at all. He's just like, oh, it didn't really work the way I was supposed to. Okay, I'll keep working on it. And then just things start to go wrong. Like, first of all, he gets this, like, for some reason, and it's always in David Cronenberg films, he gets a really increased sex drive. Like, David Cronenberg is the master of body horror films, loaded with sex. Like, I don't know why. Maybe it's something about the water in Canada, I'm not sure. And then, like, he just starts noticing little changes. Like, he gets little boils on his skin, and, like, little hairs start to sprout out. He starts to, like, do that thing where, like, you know, and it's going to get gross, so I apologize for people, like, you know, how flies throw up on their food before they eat. Like, he starts to, like, get little, like some sort of ooze comes out of him.
So he starts developing the mannerisms.
Yeah, he gets very twitchy.
Rather than...
No, he becomes a fly. That happens. But
it's interesting how it happens over a period of time.
Yeah, it's slow metamorphosis. I think the thing that really grossed me out about it is there's a scene where he's looking in the mirror and his fingernails start to fall off.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's real. And like,
oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah, it's really gross.
So this is Jeff Goldblum playing this?
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
You know, at that time, considered one of the sexiest men on earth, and they're like, well, let's really gross him up.
Yeah.
And it's, again, like, it's just... the transformation, like, it just works. Like, it shouldn't work as well as it does, 40 years on, but, like, it's so stomach churning.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's this very, very tragic story, because in the middle of it all, he falls in love with Gina Davis, and they're, kind of getting this relationship. I can't remember her character. It's been a little while since I've watched it, so it's not like, oh, it's one of your favourite films you can't remember. It's been a little while. I think she's a reporter. I think that's it. And they kind of get into this relationship, and she wants to help him, but because he's now part man, part fly, the kind of, I guess, I'm trying to think of the way, like, the mind of the fly starts to take over.
Right.
And he starts to become a little bit more irritable and becomes a little bit more aggressive and things like that. He lashes out at her and stuff, and ultimately, he pushes her away.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily because that's who his character is, like, that's part of his character, but because he's going through this change and there's this second mind coming in.
Yeah.
It's almost like a split personality.
Yeah.
And he pushes her away, and but she comes back to him. She's like, I love him. I want to help him. And by the time she kind of comes back, the transformation is almost complete. And so it becomes this very tragic story about this.
So is he actually like
a giant human-sized fly?
Oh, okay, giant.
Yeah, giant.
Yeah.
Really gross.
Oh,
like,
God.
think about The Thing. Like, I know you've seen The Thing before. Like, that kind of body horror.
Yeah.
And ultimately she has to kill him.
Okay. Because I was going to say, how does this end?
And that's how it ends. So spoilers for a 40-year-old movie. And so it's, this kind of really dark take on the American dream and ambition, like, just trying to achieve as much as you can, and then kind of falling by your own sword and losing it all.
Yeah.
And there's at the end of the film, or towards.
Did she kill him with a giant fly swatter?
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
No, I think she impales him with like a.
Yeah, I was going to say, like,
something.
impaling is probably the only, other than bug spray, heaps and heaps of bug spray.
But I think also, like, if I remember correctly, he tries to transport himself again, and he gets fused with like metal and stuff. Like, yeah, it's really weird. Like, towards the end. And it's either at the very end of the film or towards the end where she has a dream that she's pregnant with his child, but it's like a bug.
Oh!
Yeah.
And please don't tell me that comes true.
Well, then there's a sequel, The Fly 2, which I haven't seen, and I think it's meant to be about his child.
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh, no.
But, so look, it's absolutely disgusting. And not as in, like, why could anyone make this film watch it? Just the concept is so horrifying, and it's a remake. They made The Fly originally in the 50s, and if you look at the images of that movie, it's literally a guy with a big fly suit on.
Like Bart.
Yeah, exactly like Bart.
Yeah.
And this is not that. This is visual horror at its most horrifying. It's a weird, bad analogy, but you know what I'm saying. But it's so beautiful at the same time, with this really like lovely tragic story about a man who's just trying to better humanity, really. And because of his own ambition, and I know I've used the word ambition a few times now, he ends up kind of self-destructing. It's fantastic. The story holds up, the visuals hold up, performances are great. It's I don't know how early into Cronenberg's catalogue is, but it's definitely one of his best. And Cronenberg makes a lot of weird movies.
What are some of his other types
So
of movies?
there's another movie called Videodrome, starring James Woods, where he kind of he's watching kind of this weird like perverted channel that like kind of ends up on his TV, and he ends up growing like a VHS slot in his stomach, and like he does a lot of really weird movies. Cronenberg. Crash, which is about people who sexually turned on by car accidents. Like he does it. Like he's a weird guy. I want to say Eastern Promises might be his as well, but I could be wrong, and that's more of a straightforward, just kind of Russian gangster film. But wonderful filmmaker, and The Fly is damn near perfect. Like I love this movie, but it's not for the faint of heart. It holds up so well that if you're not good with gore and like body horror, it might not be for you. But if you haven't seen it and you want to give it a go, it's definitely worth a watch.
Do you ever find out what happens to the little fly?
Well, again, that doesn't happen.
Does the fly get human?
Well, that doesn't happen in the first movie. Like, it's kind of more insinuated, but there is a sequel.
Yeah.
And I think in that one, it's about his son, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
No, but like as in because the fly that goes into the teleporting machine.
Oh.
Does he become a little
Oh
tiny human?
no, they just merge.
Oh, okay, yeah,
So
yeah. Oh, yeah, Dadoy, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so The Simpsons kind of takes some liberty there.
Yeah.
And I'd obviously seen the Simpsons episode first, but no, it's great. It's such a good movie. It's and he's got his 80s mullet and stuff, so it's it's very obviously an 80s film.
Yeah, that's right.
So The Fly is my first movie, and it's fantastic.
Cool. All right. I don't think I'm ever going to watch it. Like I'm really interested, but I think the throwing up on the food really was the nail in the coffin for me.
Well, I remember a little while, I think it was last year, I said to you, I was like, oh, it'd be really great if we watch some horror movies. I know you don't like a lot, but I'll pick a few. And I went for like slashes and stuff like that, or things that were, I don't want to say tame, but like just stuff I know your wheelhouse. And you were like, what about The Fly? And I was like, oh, I was like, The Fly is great, but I don't know whether it's for you. But I mean, look, I would love to watch The Fly with you, but I think you would throw up.
Yeah.
Again, like it's churned like now that I've seen it a couple of times, it doesn't do it so much anymore.
Yeah.
Well, the fingernail scene still does get me. But it's just a film. I guess like to break it down, it's a film with a lot of pus in it. Like,
yeah.
that's what they should have called it, like Pus the movie.
Yep.
But yeah.
All right. So, what is your number 4 then?
So this is the only film on the list where I did actually watch as a child. As far as I can tell, it's the first movie I ever saw in my life, although it might have been the second.
Yeah.
Because there were kind of, it was this one, and the other movie I remember watching as a child was the BBC miniseries / movie of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
So when you say this is the first movie you've ever seen, you mean like not at the cinemas?
Not
just
in
like
theaters.
in general. You think it's the first movie you've
It's
ever
one of the
seen?
first I've ever seen as a child. There might have been a couple of others, but it wasn't in cinemas. I think my first movie in cinemas was The Lion King. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But that being said, it was with my aunt and my cousin, not with my parents. I would feel that my first movie would have been with my parents. So I don't know. Like it was a long time ago. Like Lion King is 94, I think. So I would have been 6. This movie I would have seen around the same time, maybe a little bit earlier. My dad taped it off television, and he'd done the very generous thing of stopping the tape with the ads. So
good. That's really sweet.
Well, I think he did it for himself. I don't think he did it for me. But that's what made it a lot easier. And we wore this tape thin. Like it was already taped off the television, so it was already bad quality, and then it was worsened by the fact that we watched it so much. And it's a movie that I didn't realize how adult it was until I was a teenager, and I bought it on DVD. It's a film you should never show a child. It's not appropriate, and it was The Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
But that being said, it is one of my favourite movies of all time. I've watched it recently, and if I'm honest with you, I don't have the same affection for it that I did when I was a child and teenager. And not that it's a bad movie, but as a kid, and we've talked about this before, and I think I talked about this when I spoke about Ferris Bueller a few weeks ago. When you watch 80s movies as kids, any like kind of character who's angsty or a bit of a wild card, you're like, oh, what a hero! It's an adult who's like a child, and they're leading us.
Yeah.
And as an adult, you're just like, oh my god, like just stop making terrible decisions.
Yeah.
Stop being jerks.
Yeah.
And Jake and Elwood Blues are absolutely jerks. Like they really are. But for those who don't know, and again, like if you listen to this show, you probably do know. The Blues Brothers is based on a couple of characters from Saturday Night Live that Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi created called the Blues Brothers. A couple of blues musicians who grew up in Chicago. And Jake was a bit more of a bad boy. So the film opens with him being released from jail, and they're trying to get the band back together. And they're doing it because the orphanage they grew up in is being shut down due to lack of funding. So they're like, we'll get the band back together, we'll throw a concert, we'll raise some money, bada bing, bada boom, we save the orphanage.
Yeah.
It's also a film that the Catholic Church recently, in the last 10 years, was like, this is essential viewing for Catholicism, because it's got a very positive message about like supporting the church, even though it's not a religious film at all. And then it's just it's just a zany car chase film. Like, that's what it is. Like there's two brothers going cross country trying to find their old band members who have all kind of parted ways, and they're just working regular jobs now. Like one guy's the maitre d' for a very fancy snooty restaurant, which has a very funny scene in it. His keyboardist and a couple of the other guys are playing like the equivalent of like an RSL. Like it's a really terrible gig, but at least they get to do music. One guy owns like a fried chicken shop with his wife, played by Aretha Franklin. And so it's them going cross country, kind of getting the band back together, kind of playing gigs as they go, and then trying to fill the Palace Hotel ballroom, which is this huge venue. And on the way, they keep getting busted for doing the wrong thing by the cops. There's I think it holds the record. I don't know if it's been beaten yet, but it held the record for the longest time as the film with the most cars destroyed in a car chase.
Oh wow!
And it's crazy, like the first time they go and try and find someone, they end up like running a yellow light, and Elwood has a cancelled license, so they're going to get arrested before the journey's even started, so they speed off and end up like driving through a mall, destroying all the shops, and like the police are spinning out in there, and it's just crazy. It gets all the action stuff is really, really fun.
Yeah.
Like it still really works. And then there's a point where like they encounter Nazis, like
Oh my god.
yeah, like they were just trying to cross a bridge, and like the Nazis are protesting or whatever, and then so like the Nazis are hunting them as well.
Oh my god.
It's full of like wonderful cameos, like Carrie Fisher's in it. All these wonderful like blues musicians like Ray Charles. I'm trying to think. I'm losing track of the names now.
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg has a very minor cameo.
Oh, does
towards
he?
it. Yeah.
Because I hate the Blues Brothers.
Well, have you actually seen it? Or
No.
Is it, you've only heard the
I've
music?
only seen the first, I don't know, I think maybe half an hour
It's
before I
long.
was like, this sucks, let's turn it off. Like, it was so boring.
But I didn't show
The
it
start.
to you.
Yes, you did.
No, I haven't.
Yes, you did.
I know I haven't, and I don't want to get into an argument on the show. But the only time you ever watched any of it, as far as I'm aware, is that you came home one night and I'd started watching it, and I was like, I'm going to turn this off because I don't think you're going to be into this sort of thing. I thought, and my recollection could be wrong, one of the guys you used to work with at your old high school used to play the soundtrack non-stop, and you were like, ugh. That's what I'd heard. Troy had played like the soundtrack a lot, and that got on your nerves.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't
But
think
that does sound familiar because I don't like Dan Aykroyd. I don't like Jim Belushi.
John Belushi.
John Belushi. I don't like blues.
it's not really blues. Like
Yeah, I know, but like, and it was just like I do remember. Like, I remember. That's what I mean by like you showed it to me. Like I remember sitting and watching it with you. That's what I meant. And I was just like, this is so boring because it was I remember the jail bit. He got out of jail and he got into the car. It was so quiet. There was no.
It is, yeah.
There was no talking.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, we're just expected to know who these people were? Like, I didn't know that it was based off SNL characters.
No,
So
but
I'm
I
just
don't think
like,
everyone knows
what?
it. Like, I didn't know it was based on SNL characters the
So
first time I saw it.
Well, I'm sure if I got up to the car chases, that sounds really fun.
It
And
also,
once it gets up to the action, I'd probably be interested. But man, the start of that movie is fucking boring.
it's all just I think it's one of those things, especially with older films. Like the reason why a lot of older films don't hold up or don't work for a modern audience is that the pacing's just different.
Yes, that's right. That's
You know,
exactly right.
there was no sense.
I
of
really struggled with the pacing.
There's no sense of urgency in older films.
Mm.
That being said, you know, we're just talking about The Fly. Again, you might find The Fly quite slow.
Yeah.
But it's building tension. And, yeah, like, it takes a little while to get started. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, the version that I had, which was taped, had, you know, obviously bits cut out for TV.
Mm.
So it was a lot of a tighter watch, and it was a lot more, faster paced.
Yeah.
Whereas the DVD and Blu-ray version is a little bit slower. Because you're seeing the full cut. And you will get that with older films. But look, it's not for everyone. Believe me, I was the only person I knew for the longest... Until I was in VCE,
Yeah.
I was the only person I knew who'd watched The Blues Brothers or liked it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I went to film class where I was like, oh, other people have seen other
Yeah.
movies, you know?
I think I'm the only person I know who doesn't like it. I think it's a very, very popular film
It's a
that the
cult
majority
film.
of people love, yeah.
It's not...
So sorry for everybody who's yelling at me currently.
It's a real cult film, you know? It's not as beloved as I think you would think. But people who are into film and like into comedy and stuff, I think it resonates with quite a bit.
Yeah.
But as I said, look, and using my top 5 films of all time, it's no longer there. I do like it a lot, but it just doesn't hold up as well as it used to for me. But as far as 80s films go, it absolutely has earned its place.
Yeah. I can see that.
And the music. Like, I really love the music. That was the other thing. Like, it was really tough as a kid for me because everyone was listening to, like, the radio. And we would just spin the Blues Brothers soundtrack nonstop. And no one knew what these songs were. And everyone thought I was strange. And I probably was a bit strange. But yeah, and I think that's why I had such a chip on my shoulder as I grew up about electronic music. Because just like, why are they using instruments? Why is all this music like... why are they just pressing a button? Like, I don't know what it was. And I think it's because I grew up on Blues Brothers soundtrack, and that led to, you know, Eric Clapton and B.B. King. The Beatles, which isn't Blues Brothers related, but is still.
It's not because your dad just listened to 3AW all the time.
Well, that's why I listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember saying that to a friend of ours years ago. I was like, I used to be like, why do I listen to talk radio so much? I hate it. I'll never listen to talk radio, and now all I do is listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Blues Brothers. I don't think I have much more to say on the topic. But,
cool. I can even though I don't like it, I can respect it.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So what's your number 3 then? Middle of the road.
Middle of the road. We're going horror. Last horror on the list.
Yep.
And it was hard to pick my horror movies. And this isn't actually even a true horror. It's got horror elements, but I wouldn't say it's specifically a horror. But it was really hard to kind of whittle down those ones in particular because it would be so easy to pick my Freddys or my Jasons, and none of those are my top 5. Instead, I went for something that is a little bit more out there and people probably haven't seen. So far, a lot of people who are listening to this may have seen Blues Brothers and may have seen The Fly. This one I think is a bit more niche. There's a guy called Lloyd Kaufman, and he runs the only independent studio, truly independent film studio in existence.
Yeah.
He got his start in the 70s making... I'd be hesitant to say softcore porn, but it was a lot of kind of booby movies, teen comedies where girls get naked and stuff. And then him and this guy Michael Hertz got together and they created this studio called Troma, and they're based in New Jersey. And they were like, look, we don't want to be slaves to the system. We don't want to make a low budget film and then pay millions of dollars in advertising. We don't want to have our paychecks cut in half because the big studio execs take their portion or whatever. So what we're going to do is make everything low budget. You don't need a lot of money to make great films. And whilst I love that sentiment, that doesn't apply to everything they've made. I've seen some that they haven't. But this film in particular is fantastic, and it's called The Toxic Avenger.
Oh yes, there's a performance made. There's a musical. There's a musical.
The Toxic Avenger, for those who don't know, is about... And it's so... they've been trying to remake it for years. I don't think they can because I don't want to say it's offensive, but there's a lot of stereotypes.
Yeah.
So, for example, it surrounds this... the story of this character, Melvin Junko, obviously the name Melvin because he's such a nerd, and Junko because he's trash.
Yeah. And
he works as a janitor in a health club. And the opening credits are ridiculous because it's just close-ups of, near naked bodies working out, dudes with big muscles, girls with, lycra and their nipples poking through and stuff like that. And he's oogling and ogling and almost trying to mop up. And the premise of the film, or the way I guess the catalyst for the film is he lives in Tromaville. Every movie Troma makes is set in Tromaville.
Yeah.
And it's a very crime-ridden town.
Yeah.
There's it's exactly 80s gangs are everywhere. There's gang violence everywhere.
Yeah.
And basically it's very cruel, this movie, because what it starts, everyone just picks on him because he's the dweeb or the kind of the town nerd or whatever. And so all the jocks or one of these gangs kind of oh, we're going to play a prank on Mel, it's going to be great. And the girls are what we'll do is we'll get him alone in the change rooms and we're going to make him think that we're going to seduce him and stuff. And then we're going to really embarrass him. So the girls stay back in the gym whatever, and they beckon him in, and they're again, he had, remember the filmmaker's background, they're getting shirtless and pretending to kiss him and stuff. And they turn out the lights and he's getting all excited because he's oh my god, these sexy girls. And when the lights come out, he's kissing a lamb or a sheep or something.
Okay, yeah.
But everyone in the gym is watching him and he becomes so embarrassed that he runs through the gym. He's just he's crying, he's running, and he ends up falling through a plate glass window into a truck. A truck just happens to be driving by, carrying a lot of toxic waste.
Yeah.
And he falls into it because Tromaville also has a nuclear plant. I didn't mention that. And so he's covered, and people are still laughing. Oh, and they made him dress up in a tutu. I forgot that because they're it's really sexy when guys dress in tutus.
Oh,
and he's okay,
poor guy.
Yeah,
but also dumb. You're not putting it together.
Yeah. So he ends up getting covered in toxic waste, and he goes home, and it's burning and stuff. And then overnight, he's mutated. Now he's 6 foot tall and muscly and completely mutated, and he's the Toxic Avenger. Obviously played by a very different actor, in a rubber suit. And he goes around using his mop of justice to clean up crime.
Oh, that's great.
And it's brutal. It's such a violent film. So I said horror, but horror is really not the right word for it. It's just very, very violent. in his book, Lloyd Kaufman talks about how to make a great exploding head on a low budget. He goes, you buy a cantaloupe, you inject it with, say, blood, put a wing on it, perfect exploding head.
Yeah.
And they do it. Like, there's a scene literally where this gang runs down a child. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, a 4-year-old boy, I think it is, and you see the 4-year-old boy's head explode.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see that in movies, in mainstream movies, but they do it. So then, he's now tasked with the idea of going to clean up New Jersey. He's going to help them all. And there's a pivotal moment in a fast food restaurant. And I was thinking about this when I put it on my list. I was like, I'm going to have to talk about this in case anyone wants to watch this movie. I've never, ever in my entire life found a really good excuse for violence against animals in movies. Like, I can never really justify it plot-wise. There's maybe 1 or 2 movies. Eden Lake is a modern horror film where I understand why they did it. It's a kind of a catalytic event. But more often than not, I just feel like the filmmakers are like, oh, we're just going to push it to the limit. We're going to do something really upsetting to upset viewers. I can't get behind violence against animals in movies. It doesn't make sense. Toxic Avenger has a scene where a dog gets shot. And the only reason I'm talking about it is because how dumb it is. So basically what they want to do is set up the Toxic Avenger with a love interest. And so they get a blind woman who's got a guide dog.
Yeah.
So they have to get rid of the guide dog. That's the whole point of it. But also, they're like, well, he's so grotesque, only a blind woman could love him. And this gang comes into the fast food restaurant. The Toxic Avenger comes to stop them. But before he stops them, they shoot the dog. And the only reason I'm talking about it is they cut to the dog who's dead. The dog is moving. And he's covered in spaghetti. Like, the spaghetti's meant to be cuts.
Yeah.
So, if you don't like violence against animals, you can watch Toxic Avenger. And then, he goes on and saves the day. That sort of thing. And it's pretty much... He gets revenge on everyone and saves the day. And they made a bunch of sequels. I don't like any of them.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily bad films. I just don't think they capture kind of...
The essence?
It's just... It's almost like lightning in a bottle, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason Toxic Avenger should have worked, but it works so well. And it's a B-grade film. Like, it's cheap. You can see all the strings. Like, you can see... Like, it's not... Like, it's loaded with actors who have, been to, the finest acting schools of the world, but it's just the perfect combination of everything you need for this movie.
Yeah.
And that's why it works so well, even 40 years later. But the sequels, I just felt like the second one, like, he goes to Japan to, like, fight his father or something.
Oh, okay.
The third one, I think, is time travel, or there's, like, an evil clone or something.
Yep, that sounds about right.
And the fourth one is, like, he fights the devil.
Yeah. Because after you've done time traveling, how can you top that? You gotta fight the devil.
Something like that. I can't remember. Like, I've only seen all of the sequels once, and they're not terrible. They're just... The first one is so good, they could have stopped at 1.
Yeah.
I would love to see them remake it. I just don't know how they do it. But The Toxic Avenger is on my list because it's just... There's nothing else like it. And it's very enjoyable, even with all the weird violence and weird sex stuff in it.
Yeah, because I know that it is a musical, that they have turned it into a musical, because it was on my list of possible musicals to do at school, but I then had to cut it off the list because it's not appropriate for schools, basically.
I haven't seen the musical.
I haven't seen the musical either, but what I've read of it, I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it is.
I don't think it would be.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But knowing the movie...
Yeah, exactly.
Probably not.
Probably not. That's exactly right. Okay, so number 2. We're looking at number 2 now?
Absolutely. So I was going to add one more thing to my honourable mentions, otherwise I'll kick myself later. So I mentioned teen movies before. The 80s is obviously, the birth of the teen movie. There's so many wonderful movies in there. Last American Virgin... anything with John Hughes, obviously Ferris Bueller, 16 Candles. How
do you feel... I'm going to interrupt for a second. How do you feel about John Hughes movies?
Look, the 80s was a very different time, and the movie I'm going to talk about in a moment will reflect that as well. The 80s movie... The modern teen movie has a happy ending, and everyone's likeable or pretty likeable. That's not the case with the 80s. And to some extent the 90s, but specifically the 80s, like, they feel, even though all the teenagers are played by, like, 30-year-olds, I felt like in John Hughes films, he actually did a pretty good job of portraying teenagers as they really are, because, like, think about The Breakfast Club. Like, if you haven't seen The Breakfast Club, everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's that fun movie. It's not a fun movie. It's really dark.
Yeah.
And no one's really likable in that movie. Like, even the nerd is, kind of off-putting. And I think that's a really good mirror of what kind of high school's like. Like, you might like... You may have a couple of friends that you like in high school. You might have a lot of friends in high school. But if you look back to the person you were in high school and the people you hung out with... I don't think any of them are shown in a particularly good light, because you're still learning to become a human. Ferris Bueller, obviously, we've talked about in the past, you and I talked about this a little bit on the show as well. Ferris Bueller is one of those films where if you see it as a child, it is a amazing movie, and Ferris Bueller is great. If you see it as an adult, especially if you're an adult who's a teacher, you can't stand him. He's a jerk. Although he's not the hero of the movie anyway, Cameron is. Ferris just, is kind of a real jerk to his friends.
Yeah.
So John Hughes,
Weird Science.
Look, again,
that's rough.
Weird Science is a really weird one as well. Two guys who can't get laid create the perfect woman, to fall in love with and that sort of thing. But you wouldn't make that movie any other time. Like, the 80s is the perfect time to make that. And
that's true.
I think, there's... Even though it doesn't hold... That's a film that doesn't hold up by modern standards. There's some certain, I guess, like, themes and ideas and language that you wouldn't use today. Like, there's a few, like, homophobic slurs and even racial slurs and stuff, which was more permissible in the 80s. I'm not saying it was ever right, but the 80s were just kind of like, yeah, you can say whatever you want. They didn't have, like, a code of practice, or, like, they were a bit more responsible back then. But the overall premise is like, well, yeah, that's what you do in the 80s. You get two teen boys to make, a perfect girl, like, and it's going to be a hit. But then John Hughes also made worked on Home Alone, and Home Alone's great, and Uncle Buck, which is also really wonderful. So, his 90s films are really fun, although I'm sure purists prefer the 80s movies. So, I do like John Hughes. I haven't seen all of his movies still, but I think there's a real kind of honesty in the movies he makes, especially in those 80s teen films, where he's not trying to show you the perfect picture of what teenagers are. He's trying to be a little bit more real, even if they are kind of oversaturated or kind of exaggerated a little bit.
Yeah.
Because those characters are still pretty wild, but the fact that they're unlikable, I think, is very realistic.
Yeah.
I know you're not a big fan of John Hughes.
Yeah, not really. I don't know what it is. I'm not a huge fan of Molly Ringwald to begin with.
Yeah.
I did like The Breakfast Club, but I wasn't like, this is the epitome of my teenage life. I was just like, yeah, it's fine. It was the one that I probably prefer out of all of them.
Yeah, I think I saw Breakfast Club the first time when I was 16, and it was the perfect time for me to see it.
Yeah.
Because I was a 16-year-old film student.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is so good.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if I own it, to be honest. I couldn't tell if I own Breakfast Club or not. And I still like it, but I don't go back and watch it, the same way I go back and watch Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Which is a very unrealistic portration of a teenager.
Yeah.
Time travel aside, like, the Marty is kind of, he's not exactly cool. So, I mean, he's cool to me, but, like, he's considered a bit of a loser at school.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, yeah, I do like John Hughes. I do like what he tried to achieve in his storytelling.
Cool. So you're number 2.
It's not a John Hughes film. But it is a teen movie. It is one of the first... I think if it's not the debut, it's one of the very first Sean Penn roles ever. And it kind of paved the way for, I guess, like the coming-of-age teen movie, the teen sex romp. I think a lot of those kind of movies spun out from here. Like, you don't get to American Pie without this film.
Yeah.
But this film is far superior to American Pie. And it's Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Ah, okay. So I have not seen this.
It's really wonderful. You would never be able to make this movie today.
Yeah.
Because the portrayal... And again, remember, it's a time when, teenagers are portrayed by adults. So you have to remember that. But it is, they do depict, teenagers being teenagers. So teenagers doing... I don't think there's too much drug use, but I think there's a little bit of drug use. Teenagers drinking, teenagers, having sex. Teenagers, like, just trying to get through the school year. So, like, Sean Penn plays this guy who's, like, he is a real stoner and stuff, and he's, like, ordering pizza and late to class, like, into his classroom when he's late and stuff like that. You got Judge Reinhold, who plays the older brother of one of the main kids. Jennifer Jason Leigh plays one of the girls who ends up getting pregnant. So she's the teenage pregnancy.
Yeah.
Phoebe Cates, who is, I think, widely considered one of the most beautiful 80s actresses of all times.
I don't know who that is. You keep talking.
She was she's in Drop Dead Fred. She's also in Gremlins. She really did most of her work in the 80s, most of her recognizable work in the 80s. She's in a very famous scene where she it's actually not even a real scene, it's a dream sequence, like an imaginary sequence, where she gets out of a pool in a red bikini.
That's the pictures that are coming up on Google right now.
One of the most, I guess, famous scenes out of any 80s film.
Yeah, she's pretty gorgeous, I'd say.
And it's just like it's just kids getting through the year. Like it's just kind of like, you know, from start to finish. It's got one of the very first Nicolas Cage roles as well. He has a cameo at the end working in a burger joint. But it's just a teen comedy depicting teenage life.
Yeah.
It's really fun and really earnest. There's this really unusual trend with 80s teen films where every film had to have a teen pregnancy and an abortion. And this film is not exempt from that. Like, for some reason in the 80s, and only in the 80s, teenage girls got pregnant and then had abortions in them. The other one I can think of is Last American Virgin, which is very similar to Fast Times. Also a really great film. Just, I prefer Fast Times. Fast Times is a little bit more fun. But yeah, there's not much more to say. Like, it's a really good teen film. It's a really good teen film. Like, I would put it above Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
Because I think the characters are more likable.
So is it a comedy?
It is. Like, it is sold as a comedy.
Yeah.
But, you know, it deals with real issues and stuff as well.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, so that scene I was talking about with Phoebe Cates in the red bikini, the really famous one, it's, what I'm about to say is really gross, so spoil if you don't like gross stuff. Basically, one guy's, like, thinking about her and kind of, he's in the bathroom thinking about her, and then she walks in on him and busts him. Like,
okay, yeah.
So there's some pretty, like, which is set up for laughs, but also, like, it's kind of gross.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. What's it rated then?
It was,
especially with an 80s rating, which it would have been a lot lower than what it would have been today.
In America, it's an R.
Yeah.
I think, because it's not available in Australia, I had to get mine from the UK, and I think it's a UK 15. But UK is a little bit more flexible with their ratings. We would it'd probably be an M for us.
Really? Not MA?
Nah, I don't think so. There's not that much in it. Like, you don't really see anything. I think the most you see is, like, in terms of, like, nudity and stuff, you see a couple of pairs of breasts and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's that much swearing in it. It's more just kind of like
the insinuation.
Context. Like, it's not as kind of vulgar as American Pie, which is just a gross out sex comedy.
Yeah.
There's a bit more to it. There's a little bit more heart in it as well. Like, they're trying to tell love stories, but they're trying to depict teenage love, which, as we know, is very intense and very fleeting. And yeah, so it's great. It's really, really good. I'm struggling to, I guess, like, piece it all together for you right now, because, again, it's one I haven't seen in a little while.
So is it like an ensemble?
Yeah, there's a few different stories.
Yeah, a couple of different
stories. There's a couple of different interconnected stories, and, like, there's some new kids who are newer to high school, younger in high school, and there's some older kids, and they kind of cross paths and interweave, and that sort of thing. So the Jennifer Jason Leigh character, she's dating the main guy, or the main guy's she's the new girl at school, and he's into her, and she's friends with Phoebe Cates, and the guy's older brother's into Phoebe Cates. Yeah. So there's kind of a little bit of interweaving, and then Sean Penn's character doesn't really cross over too much at all. He's just kind of like comic relief, where he's always getting in trouble. Yeah. And then, of course, the film ends with prom. And, so Sean Penn's meant to be going to prom, and his teacher comes to visit him at his house, which is very strange. And the teacher's like, you're not going to pass unless you, like, do this quiz with me right now. So you're not allowed to go to prom until you do this quiz. So this
which would never happen.
It's only ever done in movies. But it's really good. Like, if I had to recommend any teen film to anyone, this would be my go-to. Yeah. I like Last American Virgin. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's way less about the romance and way less about the teen relationships and more about, like, it's close. I would almost say it is the step between Fast Times and American Pie, where it's like, this is about three kids just trying to get laid. Yeah. Whereas Fast Times, it is about that, but it's about more, like, the relationships and stuff as well. All right. But it's really, really good.
Cool. All right, so now that leaves us to your number one, numero uno.
Yeah, so my number one film, again, like, there's not really any order, but this is when I was thinking about doing the 80s list, the first film I thought of was this film. I'm like, alright, well, it has to be my top 5.
Yeah.
Again, it's a film I didn't watch until my late 20s, and I put it off for a long time because it's directed by Paul Verhoeven, who did Starship Troopers. Now, I like Starship Troopers, but it's very cheesy, like Starship Troopers, and I was worried that this film might not age very well. Also, it's an 80s action film, and as you can see, there's not really any action films on my list.
Is it the one that I always get confused with Starship Troopers?
I don't think so.
The one that's like alien vaginas?
That is Starship Troopers.
Okay, that is Starship Troopers.
No, that was a 90s film, so no, This is a different one. But I wasn't really a big 80s action guy. I grew up in a house, as you know, where my dad wasn't super strict, but he also very much controlled what we watched. So we wouldn't see anything that was overly violent. We wouldn't see anything that was full of curse language. And of course, we wouldn't see anything that was overly sexualized. A couple of boobs is fine. According to my dad, that's the rule. A couple of boobs is okay. Just as long as I don't say any F words or cut anyone. So it took a while to get to, and I just never, as a teenager, had an interest in those 80s action films. I didn't care about big, muscly European guys. And that's not to say that the actor in this film is that, but I kind of got put... I was like, I'd rather watch like an art film or like a comedy.
Yeah, this is where your snobbery comes through.
So when I finally got to this film, I was blown away at how amazing it was. Now, the visual effects are stunning. Like, they still work. The violence is very intense. There's stop motion in it, which shouldn't work, but does. The performances are great.
I think I know what it is.
And the theme song is killer. I can't hum it for you right now because it's been a while. But it's RoboCop.
Yes, I thought that's what it was going to be.
Like, RoboCop is brilliant.
It is brilliant.
You got Peter Weller, who plays your main character.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me. Absolutely. And he's new to Detroit. Of course, it's Detroit.
Yeah.
And on his first day on the job, he gets not killed. He gets destroyed.
Yeah.
They're chasing like the evilest gang in Detroit. Kurtwood Smith plays the leader of the gang. He's also the dad in that 70s show.
Yeah.
And him and his his gangbangers. There's a guy. The absolute stereotypes. Like, it's a black guy with a big chain and a leather hat.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. And the police are chasing him down. Him and Karen Allen. And they take him. It's Murphy. That's his name. His name's Murphy. Officer Murphy. And they're like using shotguns to blow his arms and legs off and stuff. And he gets, built into this robot suit. Like, so I think it's Omnicorp. I think it's Omnicorp is the name of the company. Yeah. They resuscitate him and they build this machinery around him. And his memories are kind of wiped away. And over time he starts to slowly remember who he was. And also tries to fight for control back from the computer that's kind of running his body.
Yeah.
And it's so brilliantly done.
Yeah.
As I said, the theme... I wish I could remember the themes off the top of my head, because it's so good. It's like the best kind of action theme you'll have ever. It has one of the most amazing scenes of justice I've seen in a film, where RoboCop is patrolling, and he sees two guys attacking a hooker. And he gives the line, dead or alive, you come with me, along the lines of that. And they're trying to shoot him, and of course he's a robot, so it doesn't do anything. And he points his gun between the woman's legs and shoots the guy's junk off.
Yeah.
And I remember when they remade RoboCop in 2014 and it was marketed as an M-rated film. I'm like, well, that scene's not going to be in it, so why would I watch it?
Yeah.
I think Miguel Ferrer plays the guy who runs Omnicorp, and he gets destroyed by one of the patrolling drone things as well. And it's just a classic like good guy getting revenge story. Like, he's trying to clean up his town, and he's also trying to get revenge on the guys who murdered him, or thought they'd murdered him. And it's just great. It's so much fun. It's one of the most fun movies that I've ever seen in my life. It's one of the most fun action films. And it holds up, and it really shouldn't.
Yeah.
There's no reason this film should hold up. I remember the first time I watched it, I could not believe how great it was. And how much I enjoyed it, because I'm like, this is old. And I would have watched this for the first time almost 10 years ago now, and it still holds up.
Yeah. Well, I remember I've only seen it once.
Yeah.
And you showed it to me. And I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, like, after we finished watching it, I was like, I want to watch that again.
Yeah.
Like, I want to watch it again straight away.
It should not be as good as it is. And from what I understand, again, now I don't know the whole story behind it, but I think originally RoboCop was actually meant to be a Judge Dredd film. And there's only the rumour I've heard, so, take this with a huge grain of salt. But apparently it was meant to be a Judge Dredd film, and then like kind of things went sideways, and like the company who owned Judge Dredd were like, "Yeah, we don't want to do this." So they pulled out, and they were like, "Well, look at this great script for this great cop with a helmet movie. We'll just change it slightly and call it RoboCop."
Yeah.
And just change his look, and then it became that. And you know, I've seen Judge Dredd from the '90s. RoboCop's better.
Yeah.
Dredd, you know, with Carl Urban from 2014 is pretty good. Like that's a really good film, but I think RoboCop's still better.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the sequels. The only one I've seen is the remake from 2014, and it's fine. I just think that was a really missed opportunity because they were basically like, everything you loved about that 80s film, we're going to pack into a film that anyone can go and see. And it's like, no, you misunderstood.
Yeah,
RoboCop is not for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Although, they did make a TV show that was PG, and they sold toys to children. So I had a RoboCop figure as a kid, not knowing what it was because I'd never seen RoboCop because it was rated R.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love it. I more than love it. I adore it.
Yeah.
It's so much fun, and it's just...
Well, we're gonna watch it again soon.
I mean, it really should be something that's in a higher rotation in my watch list because I do love it so much. But RoboCop, so them's the breaks.
Them's the breaks, as Boris Johnson would say.
Those are my top 5 '80s films.
Nice, that's a good list. That's a very good list.
I think it is, you know, and obviously everyone's got different ones. And like, it would have been so easy for me to go to Back to the Future or Ghostbusters or Ferris Bueller's Day Off or all those sorts of ones. But I wanted to, and it's not because of me. This wasn't me being like, oh, I'm going to be a snob and put out some snobby films. It was just like, I love all those films, but I also want to talk about some stuff that people maybe haven't seen as much or films that don't get as much praise. I don't know if people are speaking as highly about RoboCop or, you know, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Toxic Avenger as I am. You know, not to say that I'm the only person who likes it, but I just don't hear people talk about those movies. I hear about even The Fly. Like the only one I hear the one I hear the most about is Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
But there's other films I hear people.
No, The Fly is very highly revered.
Yeah.
From what as someone who only hears about these movies and hasn't seen these movies, so someone on the outside, I can tell you that The Fly is pretty highly revered. Nobody really... Some people talk about Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but not many. But RoboCop is beloved.
And the other thing I'd say is, with the exception of maybe... Blues Brothers, and I did say it's one that doesn't hold up for me as much as it used to, the other 4, I think, hold up insanely well.
Yeah.
Toxic Avenger, as long as you know what you're getting yourself into, if you know that it's an independent, low-budget film, if you go in thinking like, oh, it's going to be a cinematic masterpiece, then no, you're not going to have a good time. But if you go in with the right expectations, those 4 films, I've chosen them because they do hold up so well. Also, where if you'd never seen anything before, because that's the other thing, you know, I had this conversation with David, you know, when he was on the show, and you know, he's a teacher, he's a psychology teacher, and he was playing pieces of music to his students and saying, you know, how does it make you feel? And no one recognised the theme from Jaws, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because first of all, like, all you need to know is 2 notes. Like, yes, there's more to that theme, but really, if you know 2 notes, you know Jaws. And so I guess I chose films that also, I know that the listener base is a little bit younger.
Yeah.
You know, I've got listeners from all different ages, but the biggest age group is kind of 20 to 27 or something like that. And they may not have seen some of these films. I'm like, if you want to get into the 80s, like, this is a really good place to start.
Yeah.
So I really do like my list. I'm really happy with my list. You know, there's some I guess, you know, people might have expected Terminator or Predator and stuff like that as well. And I've kind of gone a bit of a different direction, but I really like them, and I really think that people give them a chance. They will too.
Nice. Okay, so what's your honourable mentions? What's great but didn't make the cut?
Okay, so...
It's left on the cutting room floor.
So I've got a few on here.
Did you like my movie pun?
I really liked it. Sorry, I was just looking at my list.
Blew it off.
I'm sorry.
Completely blew it off. You're like, I don't care. I'm talking.
I'm like, it's my show.
Yeah. It's my show, bitch.
So there are a few. The ones that maybe less is spoken about, I'll go into a bit more detail, and the ones that everyone knows, I'll skim over. So the first one is Sleepaway Camp, which is, as I said, the 80s was the dawn of the slasher. And the Sleepaway Camp is very much like a Friday the 13th type movie. It's a very unusual premise. It opens with a child and their parents dying, and the leftover child having to move in with their aunt, a little girl named Angela. And then we flash forward 10 years, and she's like 13 or 14, and she's going with her cousin, who's now her brother, because they've lived together for so long. They're going to camp together. She's very shy and quiet, and she gets picked on a lot. And of course, being a teen slasher, or like a slasher film at a campsite, people start dropping like flies.
Yeah.
And basically, like, all the kills and everything is very, very stereotypical. One thing I really like about it is they actually flip the script a little bit. Like, normally in these kind of like slasher films, it's naked women everywhere, or like women being sexualized. And don't get me wrong, it does happen because it's an 80s film. But there's a lot more focus on the guys. So, for example, there's a camp counselor who wears the tightest shorts I've seen in a movie ever. And he looks like John Travolta, but like it's obviously not John Travolta, with a big black mullet. But the twist is that the murderer is Angela. She's the killer.
Yeah, I would have guessed that.
And the bigger twist is she's not Angela. She was actually the boy who survived. And you see, the final shot is her with a rictus grin, covered in blood, naked, and it's a dude.
Right.
It's the most weird film. Like, I've just spoiled it for a lot of people, but it is a 40-year-old film. And it's worth it just for the twist alone. Like, it's so wonderfully weird. You've never seen anything like it. And if you've never watched it, I've given the game away, but still, like,
it'll still be enjoyable.
It does have to be seen to be believed. So next on my list is Last American Virgin. I touched on it a little bit. It's actually an American remake of an Israeli film called Lemon Popsicle. And as I said, it's kind of the precursor to American Pie. 3 guys trying to get laid.
Yeah.
But I just like the love story in it. You know, the guy is so... the lead of the film is so hopelessly a loser. And the girl he's in love with just ends up dating his best friend.
Yeah.
And then his best friend gets her pregnant. And then, you know, he dumps her like a real jerk. And then the main guy's like, well, I'll look after you. You know, he sells all his things, you know, to pay for an abortion. He's looking after her. And then at the end of the film, you're like, oh, and she's like, he's like, I know that, like, you've been through a lot, but I'd really like to just take you out, like, for like a milkshake, because I can't remember what it was, like, or to the movies. And she's like, yeah, I'd really like that. And he goes to the party, and she's back with the guy who got her pregnant. And the final scene of the film, like, the credits, is just the lead guy driving home crying.
Aww.
And I'm like, that is so perfectly earnest.
Yeah.
Like, that's what happens in, you know, and, like, at the same time, like, you know, we talk about this heartbreaking love story. At the same time, these 3 guys go around and, like, you know, seek out like a cougar and try to have like so there's all sorts of like weird sex stuff in it as well. But it's just so uniquely 80s. Next on my list, National Lampoon's Vacation.
Yeah.
I'm a big Chevy Chase fan. I know he's notoriously not the nicest guy in Hollywood and a little bit arrogant and stuff like that. And he thinks quite highly of himself. But you can't take away from his talent. Like, he is very funny. Those vacation films are great, but that first one in particular is a really wild ride. And I had to throw something Chevy Chase in there.
Yeah.
And it seemed the least problematic. Like, I like Fletch Lives, but I think that's a bit racist now. And, you know, like, Caddyshack is a bit overly sexist and stuff. So, National Lampoon's Vacation seems like a happy medium.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters...
Oh, yeah.
I've talked about constantly on this show. Like, the last 4 episodes, I think it's come up every single time. Flying High, just really want to get... you know, it's known as Airplane in America. I really just wanted to get a Leslie Nielsen film in, but it is really funny. I think, like, the...
oh, no, wait, no, that's not Leslie Nielsen. Never mind.
What were you going to say?
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
No, that's not Leslie Nielsen.
And isn't that 90s anyway? I think it might be.
It'd be late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
But Airplane... You know, and The Naked Gun by the Zucker brothers. For me, they're the last kind of spoof movies that really worked.
Yeah. 88 for Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
It's such a wonderful film. You know, like the scary movie films I liked as a kid, but going back, they really don't hold up for me. They're very... It's not that they're bad, it's just that they don't hold up for me the way they did when I was younger. Like, at 15, I was the right age for those movies.
Yeah. Whereas
Naked Gun and Airplane and those sorts of films... I'm not going to say they're a higher brow type of film because it's very much, you know, puns and like, you know, double entendres and stuff like that. But Airplane does have one of my favourite lines where they get into the cockpit of the plane and there's like the 3 guys and there's like George under, someone Clarence and someone, and someone Rogers, and they're like, "What's our over under? What's our clearance Clarence? What's our Roger?"
Yeah.
Like something like that. It's really like silly wordplay.
Yeah, that's right.
But all the
Very Python-esque type.
very Python-esque, and all the characters, like you see all the different passengers, they've all got like little funny stories and stuff like that as well. There's a sick girl on the plane who's got an IV drip, and they get a nun with a guitar to come over and sing to her, and then the nun kind of just like starts rocking out, keeps knocking the IV out.
Yeah.
There's some really great flashback scenes with our primary characters, and then Leslie Nielsen, I think, plays the doctor, and he has that repeated joke where he keeps coming into the cockpit. He's like, "I just want to tell you guys, we're all counting on you. Good luck," and he does it like 4 times throughout the movie. So silly, like really silly, but a really fundamental part of my childhood. Like I watched Airplane a lot. Or Flying High, I should say. Next on that, a couple more films. Raiders of the Lost Ark, obviously, perfect. It's actually the only Indiana Jones film I really like. I don't dislike the other ones, but I just don't think any other film in the series comes anywhere near close to Raiders.
Yeah.
So that one's fantastic. Empire Strikes Back, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Also really wonderful. I had to throw a Freddy film and a Jason film in. I went with my favourite, or maybe the most iconic of the series. So Friday the 13th Part 3, that's the one where Jason gets the hockey mask.
Yeah.
And then Nightmare on Elm Street, The Dream Warriors, which is the most fun. It's the first time Nightmare on Elm Street became a bit more lighthearted. And you have the teens, in the dream can start controlling their dreams and fighting back, which is really, really fun and quintessentially 80s.
Yeah.
And then my last film in my honourable mentions, and again, I've missed tons. I'm sure people are screaming at their phones or listening devices right now, being like, "You missed this one." I know I missed this one. Is Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Really wonderful film. The sequels aren't for me. They're not bad films. I just didn't like the comedic twist that they took. The first one I thought had the right balance of humour, but was essentially meant to be a horror film. Sam Raimi funded it by getting investments from dentists. Like, it's a really interesting...
Really?
He went around and was like, "Hey, I'm going to make this film. This is how much it's going to cost. If you invest, I'll get your money back," that sort of thing. And so dentists, helped him fund it.
Why dentists?
Well, dentists make a lot of money, I suppose.
But why would dentists be interested in making a movie? It's not about teeth.
That's a really good question. But it's the prototypical cabin in the woods film. This is the first cabin in the woods film. Bruce Campbell making his acting debut, and he's obviously a cult icon now. And this film led to everything that Sam Raimi did. Obviously, he did the Spider-Man films. You can see the Evil Dead influences in the new Doctor Strange film. It's just really, really wonderful. And as I said, I do like the remake, but the sequels to me, they just were a bit too zany for my liking.
Yeah.
But those are my honourable mentions. A couple of horror ones in there, a couple of different little fun ones as well.
Nice.
But hopefully...
Sounds quite honourable to me.
Now, thank you. Very good. Now that I've put my list out, hopefully I've stolen some of that cred back that I lost a few episodes ago.
I think so, yeah. I think so. I mean, I didn't listen to Josh's episode, but I'm your wife. I'm going to agree with you.
Josh, I think I maintained most of my credit. I think it was Gabby's episode. I really lost it.
Sorry.
Because there were some big ones that I hadn't seen. But yeah, that's my 80s list. And
nice.
I'm very happy with it.
Good. You should be. Alright, so now we're going on to the 80s rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I'm not. I haven't prepared for it, even though I ask the questions every week.
Well, they're rapid fire, so you're not supposed to prepare for it.
No, I know, but someone who asks these questions every week, you think I might have some backup ideas? I didn't plan. I'm just going in fresh, so we'll see how we go.
Okay. First question is, poppadoms or bread? Poppadoms or bread, James? Poppadoms or bread?
Definitely bread.
Yeah, definitely bread. Alright. First question is, which movie is the definitive 80s movie?
I mean, I guess this is my chance of sneaking Back to the Future, right? There's no film more 80s than Back to the Future.
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. There's no film that's more 80s than Back to the Future. Which 80s movie has the best theme song or soundtrack?
Now, this one's tough because, again, we talked about, about how music really changed with 80s films. It would be so... I mean, I could probably answer Back to the Future for every question here. I
know, I was looking through this and I was like, Back to the Future is the answer for all of them. But I did think of one.
Back in Time is quite good, and Power of Love is really good. I really like Dream Warriors by Dokken from Nightmare on Elm Street as well. But I think, for a film that wasn't my top 5, but I was a bit critical of, I would probably throw Blues Brothers. I love that soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's not specifically very 80s sounding.
Yeah.
So like if that's what I guess
because it's blues. Blues is an 80s era.
Like if we're going for like more poppy stuff, probably would have to be Back to the Future.
What about theme song? Is there a theme song that sticks out? Because the theme song that sticks out to me the most is do 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 of Terminator.
Well, that's just the score.
Yeah, but that's the theme song as well.
I guess if we're going for purely music and no lyrics, then maybe it's still Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah, that's right.
Or I could throw Raiders in there.
Oh, what about Star Wars?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could throw in Star Wars. I could also throw in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Who are you going to call?
Because the 80s has really good theme songs.
Or
really good theme songs.
Or you could throw in Breakfast Club, and I'm not going with "Don't You Forget About Me." I'm going with "You Are Not Alone." The montage song. Like that's That's the best song in the movie, but it's not the one people remember. No, I'm going to stick with my answer of Blues Brothers, even though it's not definitively 80s. Like in terms of like the sound of it, it's a soundtrack I've literally spun my entire life.
Yeah. So Blues Brothers.
Yes.
All right. Which actor and actress defined the 80s?
That's another tricky one, because again, I wrote these questions with obviously very little thought. Because now that I think about it, it's like, well, if they defined the 80s, does that mean their career ended in the 80s, or that's what they're most known for? Or because when I think of actors, like it's hard to go past Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I was going to say Tom Cruise.
But he's had a massive career following the 80s.
Yeah, that doesn't.
But
doesn't mean...
but you think about like Cocktail and Top Gun.
Yeah, that's right.
So Tom Cruise, I think, is maybe the most definitive performer of his time, or Anthony Michael Hall.
Which one's that?
So he's in a Community. He's the guy who's like, I want to win a doodle.
Oh yeah.
But
he's from
But he's in all the John Hughes films.
Yeah.
So like Tom Cruise is the one that comes to mind straight away. But if I was going to go for a bit more obscure choice, I'd say Anthony Michael Hall, because he was in all of those movies.
So you're choosing it on definition of like who's been in it the most, not who is the face of the 80s.
Well, I guess
I would say Tom Cruise would be the face of the 80s.
I guess like the way I'm approaching it is when I think of the 80s, who do I think of?
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise is absolutely the first person I think of.
Yeah, that's
so
what I
it
think
would be
of.
Tom Cruise. Yeah.
What about actress?
So that's tough. Because I want to say Molly Ringwald, but I don't know
I was thinking that too.
But I don't know if she was in that much. Like she was in a few things.
That it's not who's been in the most films in the 80s. If that's the first person that jumps to your mind, then that's who you think defined the 80s.
I think of her. I do think of Carrie Fisher quite a bit. She showed up, quite a few films.
Yeah.
So it probably they may be the two. I'm taking a lot of liberties with this because I always tell people to give me one answer. I'm throwing out a bunch. That's my show, so whatever.
My answers were exactly the same. I thought Tom Cruise, Molly Ringwald.
Those are the two that I think of.
They're the
most.
face of the 80s.
Yeah.
Or also Blossom, but was she 90s?
Oh,
Maya
Bialik.
Bialik, yeah.
Well, I didn't even know who she was until Big Bang Theory. So
yeah, we didn't have Blossom in Australia, really. Best 80s vehicle.
Oh, actually, you know what? Sorry, just to go back to the 80s actors. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh yeah, the toy.
Yeah, he was quite big. I would even say, you know what? 80s. You know what? I got to add an honorable mention.
Okay.
And it probably should be my top 5. I just thought of it. Die Hard.
Oh yeah.
Die Hard is brilliant.
Yeah.
Like everyone knows Die Hard, but yeah, Die Hard. I just thought that's really embarrassing. I'm glad I got that in there. But Bruce Willis wouldn't be the face of theirs. He's not who I think.
No.
More of a 90s actor, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say so as well. All right, so best 80s vehicle or mode of transport?
Look, when I was writing this question, I was trying to think of all the different kinds before I kind of, because the DeLorean is obviously the answer.
Yeah.
But, I'd also, I might throw in Rufus's telephone box.
Yeah.
Like, I think about that a lot.
Is Mad Max 80s or 90s?
It's 80. A couple of them are. I think the first one might be late 70s. But again, like it's the DeLorean.
That's just the answer.
Or I would say, also the hearse from Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah. I was thinking that too.
That's quite good as well. But it is the DeLorean. Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? So for all the times.
Which version of the DeLorean would you say?
Oh, the first one.
Not the Mr. Fusion one that runs on anything.
No, I like that.
Any garbage that helps the environment and it flies.
Yeah, but I'm not looking for the motivation behind the vehicle. The first one to me is just the best one. And then the train. No, just kidding.
And then the train, dear God, no.
But I do like 3 better than 2.
Yeah.
But I do. I would.
I know.
I would know.
I know.
What I was gonna say is I do think the second DeLorean is obviously better than the third DeLorean.
But the second DeLorean wouldn't count because it's 90s, isn't it?
It's 89 for Back to the Future Part 2.
Oh, okay, sorry.
90 for Back to the Future Part 3.
Right, gotcha. And then finally, which 80s film should they remake?
Yeah, so we flipped the question in the first round. In the first phase, we were saying what should they never remake. I've actually never answered those rapid fire questions, so one day hopefully I'll get to answer those ones. But remaking the 80s, it's tough, because they've remade so much, and some of it successful, some of it not so successful. So, for example, we talked about RoboCop before, not so good.
Yeah.
And not even bad, just really missed opportunity. So it is tricky. My answer is not Back to the Future. You don't need to do anything to that film. Let me have a think. I haven't put any thought into it. And the problem with the 80s is that those films are such a product of their time. A lot of them couldn't be remade today. We talked about Weird Science before. You couldn't remake Weird Science. I think they've done versions of it, but not the way Weird Science was done. And the other thing is then what haven't they already remade? Like they've remade Nightmare on Elm Street. They've remade Friday the 13th. That sort of thing. You can't remake Sleepaway Camp. It's not going to happen as much as I would like to.
Could they remake Toxic Avenger?
Well, that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been trying for at least 15 years and it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
But I think that's what you do. I think you remake Toxic Avenger. Because it's the kind of film where, first of all, it'd have to be Troma. You couldn't get a major studio to remake it because they would cleanse it. Like, they'd clean it all up. Like, you wouldn't have your excessive violence. You wouldn't have your excessive sex, and you wouldn't have all your kind of crazy tutus kissing lambs and stuff like that. But I think if Troma did it, or at least in association with Troma, you do get it. But the other thing I have with that is, my only problem with it is, what do they do differently? Because I don't want them to do CGI. I want them to keep using the suit and practical effects. And so, like, how do they improve on it? That's the only problem I'm having.
My thought process, and I know obviously I'm going to answer these when it gets to my version of the podcast, but I would think like something really actiony like Terminator. That'd be an interesting one to redo. Or Predator. Something like that might be really interesting to redo. Because you just it's still the same story, but it's just the technology has been modernized. That's all.
Yeah.
So you don't have to like redo, you don't have to make it PC. You don't have to like, change the storyline too much. It's literally just like a reintroduction of new technology. Much like how Ghostbusters, the remake for Ghostbusters, it's still the same ghosts and stuff like that, but like the technology is a little bit more modernized.
I'm not happy with my answer. So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to. I'm just scanning my brain for other 80s
Yeah,
films.
that's right.
I know it's the end of the show, so this is really
It's
anticlimactic.
rapid fire. First thing off the top of your head.
The problem is the ones that come to my head that have been remade, so I don't want to really do that again.
Well, then maybe they can remake it again, make a better version of it. If you that's the thing. They remade Ghostbusters with the female cast in 2000 and what was it?
2016.
16. That flopped, so they remade it again.
Yeah, but that's a sequel, it's not a remake.
But you can remake things. Oh, whatever. Oh, it's a sequel, it's not a remake. You know what? What movie are they going to do again?
RoboCop.
There you go.
Do RoboCop
and make
again.
it better.
Do RoboCop again, and this time do it properly.
That's the correct answer. That's what I was waiting for. Thank you.
Do RoboCop again. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, they need to. Like, you could absolutely do it. And who do we... I always get people to cast it, so I'm trying to think who you cast.
Yeah.
You would cast...
John Cena?
I mean, that's exactly who I was thinking of.
Yeah.
But also, like, he doesn't need to be... Like, the thing about RoboCop is Murphy was scrawny.
Oh, okay.
So
Chris Evans?
No.
I know he's not. I know Chris Evans.
He's like ripped.
No, I know he's not scrawny, but still.
No, you know who you get, and this is a...
Jeremy Renner?
No, this is gonna sound so left of field. You get Bill Hader.
Oh, okay.
Bill Hader's like your nerd, like he's your nerd, like kind of not nerdy, but he's kind of like your desk clerk, and he kind of has to go out into the field.
John Cena would be your Toxic Avenger.
Yeah, he would. He would be. I'm saying Bill Hader. I think Bill Hader, like, he's so underrated as a serious actor.
Yeah.
I think you get him, or someone like James McAvoy.
Yeah.
One of those two. And then the rest, you cast whoever you want. You make Benedict Cumberbatch be your villain, because he's just a great villain all the time. Or John Cena could be your villain in that.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, RoboCop with either Bill Hader or James McAvoy.
There you go.
That's it. Actually, you know what? James McAvoy's your RoboCop, Bill Hader's your villain.
Yeah.
Because Kurtwood Smith does not look like a villain, but he was terrifying.
Mm.
Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm really happy with that, actually.
Good. That's a really good answer. All right. Well, so how do you feel about the being interviewed now?
Good. No, I was looking forward to it. I wasn't too nervous because I've been doing it for a while, but I was just like, I need to make sure I'm happy with my choices, and I really want to take the time to explain these choices and get into the detail of what these films are. Because I know, I knew going in that you wouldn't have seen most of them, and so you would do what you could to kind of probe, but you wouldn't necessarily know what to ask, or you wouldn't know what to prompt me for missing.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to make sure I kind of gave them a really kind of thorough overview. And I think I did that. I think I really sold them in a positive light. So yeah, and it's funny, the rapid fire, everyone's always like, the rapid fire question. And I was like, well, I won't get stressed. And I literally changed my answers so many times. But no, it's good. I'm looking forward to doing it again. Because at some point, somewhere, I know Nick really wants to interview me about, I suppose, where it all began, like how they get into movies and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to doing that again. And then obviously as the phases move on, when we do the 90s and stuff like that, we'll do horror in October and stuff like that also. So no, I like it, and I would like to do more of it. But I know that's not my role in the show for the most part. But no, it was good.
Good. I'm glad that you had a good time and that you were entertained and that you were happy with your responses. And that's great, because that's what this is all about. It's all about you talking about the things that you love. Well,
it is. And it's so funny, because whenever I wrap the show and I talk to someone afterwards or the next couple of days, because this is a little bit of peek behind the curtain, but after I record an episode, and we wrap up, I always message the person in the next day or so saying, like, hey, thanks for, not surrendering, but like giving up some of your time. Like, I know you don't have to do this. I really appreciate you making it. I hope you enjoyed it. And the feedback has only ever been positive. People are like, oh my God, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, yeah, it is fun. But I haven't known that from the interviewee side of it. I've only known the fun I've had as an interviewer, but now I'm like, oh, it really is fun doing it. So,
Good. Well, that was this week's episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob. I hope you enjoyed it with my guest, James Chalmers. And my name's Tina Chalmers. I'm married to a teenage film snob, but he's trying to get better.
See you next week.